You're listening to episode 49, Guardians of the Galaxy, directed by James Gunn. Is it Marvel's best film? Let's find out on this episode of Video Villa Podcast. So I'll let Logan kick off this episode because I think this is one of his favorite movies. It's also one of the very first movies we watched together.
It was the first movie we watched.
No, that was Planes, Trains, and Automobiles.
No, this was the first one.
Okay, beg to differ.
No. I promise you, this was the first one. Because when you came over, because when me and Becca first started dating, she came over to my apartment and we watched this movie because the second one was The Iron Giant, because I was like, I kind of want to watch this movie, but it's a cartoon movie. You're like, I don't care. I'm like, you watch cartoon movies? Okay.
Little did he know.
Let's watch
It's all I watch.
Yeah, I'll be coming downstairs and you're just watching Alice in Wonderland. I'm like, I haven't seen Alice in Wonderland since I was like 8.
Yeah. So,
I have no desire to rewatch that movie.
I do.
What else were you watching the other day? You were watching something else the other day.
I don't know.
So it was another animated movie. What was it? Was it Jungle Book?
Mm-mm. No.
Robin Hood?
No. I don't know. How long ago is the other day?
I don't know. I can't remember.
It depends. I don't think I've watched any recently.
Yeah, it probably wasn't recently, but I just remember like there was Alice in Wonderland. There was some other movie that you were watching that was on Disney Channel, some old Disney movie. I can't remember. Was it Aristocats maybe?
I watched that somewhat recently. I've also watched Babe.
Yeah.
Or Charlotte's Web.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. Sometimes I'm just like, and they're like, they take no time. Like they're usually like an hour and 10 minutes, something like that. And they take no time. And I'm just sitting there anyway. And they're like the perfect background noise, or they're perfect just to watch in general.
Yeah. I don't know. Like, well, this movie, I remember because like this was one of my, at the time when it came out, like I was so shocked how good this movie was. And it was kind of almost like a comfort movie. Like there's a couple, like Planes, Trains, Automobiles is a comfort movie for me. Wayne's World is a comfort movie for me. The Iron Giant is a comfort movie for me. Uncle Buck is a comfort movie. And Guardians of the Galaxy, even though it's a superhero, we'll take it back. It's not James Gunn doesn't consider it's superhero movie. It's a space opera. So it's a little bit different than just your, full-blown superhero cinematic event. And I think that's one of the reasons why I really do like it. Like, I love superheroes, but this was just something special. I remember coming out of the theater and explaining this movie to my mom. And I like telling her, like you don't understand, Mama. You have to go see this in theaters. You have to go see it. The best way I explained to it, it's like, and this is kind of funny because like it's kind of like the same thing twice, but like I was like, it's like Indiana Jones and Star Wars at the same time. But technically, like those are kind of like, it's kind of the same thing, you know what I mean? Like, but like that was the best way that I could explain it to her. I was like, this is just, it's an epic, fun time. And I was like, okay, well, she's going to come over to my place. We're going to watch a movie. I'm going to pick something I really like.
You didn't even know I was going to come over that time.
No, I didn't. No.
Which also is ironic because we were coming up on our 5-year dating anniversary. So almost 5 years since we saw Guardians of the Galaxy for the first time together. But yeah, no, because you can't just trust people. So you have to go on multiple dates in public places. Several times.
Oh my God, so many dates.
So you can be prepared to avoid being murdered.
Oh God. It took her forever to get her to my place. Forever.
Whatever.
And you didn't get murdered.
No, I could take you. Anywho. But yeah, so Guardians of the Galaxy does hold a special place in our heart because it's the second movie we watched, Logan claims it's the first.
It's the first one because also it's the first movie because you always said, I'm only a TV show kind of girl. I'm only a TV show kind of girl.
Literally was not lying.
And at the time, I think...
there was no false advertisement.
Well, I think at the time Mandalorian had just came out. I was like, well, do you like Star Wars? You're like, I don't think I've ever seen it.
No. Don't care for it.
But you like The Mandalorian?
Yeah. I'll watch it. If I don't care for something, I'll still watch it. Sometimes.
Yeah, sometimes.
More in the beginning than now.
Unless it's a horror movie, then it takes some digging to get her to watch it.
Yeah.
How many people die in it? What happens?
No, I just look up the whole movie. But I don't use that to spoil it. I keep it all to myself.
Well, it's not going to be spoiled for me because 9 times out of 10 I've already seen it.
But either way, I'm not going to bring it up. I just store it in the back of my mind so I already know what's going to happen. Preparedness is key.
Well, I'm glad you didn't do it with this one because this one is just it's
a heartfelt movie.
Oh my God, it's such a fun movie. This movie, it is. Words can't express how much I enjoyed this movie, and there's nothing better than like when you watch a movie and you don't get what you're expected to get. Like when this movie came out, it was in phase 2 of the MCU. Okay, I heard it was being made. I heard Chris Pratt was, being attached to it. Like I said, if you listen to our Goosebumps episode, which check out, it's a very good episode. And I think we did a great job on that one. But if you haven't listened to that one, check that one out. But I did bring up Guardians of the Galaxy at the end of it, where, you were just, I was so shocked because at this time, this was, Andy Dwyer. He wasn't Chris Pratt. He was Chris Pratt, but he wasn't the Chris Pratt we know today. He was Andy Dwyer, and this is 10 years. This movie came out 10 years ago. So we're a little bit past its birthday. I think it was August. So, it's exactly 10 years now. And that's kind of my rule of thumb for when it comes to reviewing movies. Like, I want them at least be 10 years old before we actually start to talk about them. So give some time has passed and, it kind of like there is maybe for some individuals or it does hold a nostalgic value to it because it has been 10 years, which for me, it really does hold a nostalgia to me because it was like the 2010s was just an epic year, like for music and movies. And I don't know, the whole MCU was being developed in that time. And when I heard this was coming out, I was like, I didn't read the comics. For some people I know, but I am more of a DC kind of guy. I know more DC lore than Marvel lore. And since Guardians of the Galaxy wasn't on my radar, I don't get me wrong, I was very excited for the MCU when it was coming out. Now, not every movie right at this point in time had been hit after hit after hit. We got Iron Man, Incredible Hulk, the first Avenger, Captain America movie. And there were some that were just and then we got Iron Man 2, which wasn't really that good. Personally, I didn't think the first Captain America was that good. But I believe it was this year we also got The Winter Soldier, which was really good.
Yeah. And
then several months later, we get Guardians of the Galaxy, which is... it literally is. A phenomenal movie. It basically, some would say, it completely changed the trajectory of how the Marvel movies were made based off how successful it was. And that comes down to a lot with James Gunn and Nicole Perlman on their writing the script for the movie.
Yeah, I think the writing was really good. It definitely, you get a little bit of backstory, which we'll dive in, of each of the characters. Plus, you do get a lot of, heartfeltness, especially in the beginning, or heartwarming writing in the very beginning as well.
Oh, yeah. First, this story is really this was James Gunn's baby. He came up with a lot of stuff for this film that literally they would use to build the MCU for phase 3 and so forth. It is pretty crazy about this little movie really did, like I said, change the trajectory of how the MCU was going to be built and so forth. To the point where when this movie was done wrapping, he had already had ideas for 2. And he took those ideas, literally after this movie was done wrapping, he literally had a meeting with Kevin Feige was like, okay, I've already started writing 3. This is where I think things are going to go. How can we fit this into the MCU? And, you know, that first couple phases of the MCU were really, really good. I mean, we got a epic battle with, you know, Infinity War and Endgame. I mean, it really did become something epic and special. Unfortunately, after, you know, a lot of people like me feel the same way, but it looks like we did peak during that time frame, and a lot of stuff that's been coming out lately has not really been that great. Now, like as far as one movie that, you know, like that has came out post all this and recent was, I mean, Deadpool Wolverine was phenomenal.
Yeah.
And that was one of those things, that was a Guardians moment. Like I left that theater being so freaking happy after seeing Deadpool and Wolverine. I love that movie so, so much. And it was just, for me, I know, like, I mean, really, I have no complaints. To me, it was a perfect film. The only complaint I had was like, I wish Josh Brolin would have came back and I would have saw a little bit of Cable. That's it. That's the only complaint, or maybe a little bit of Domino or something like that. But really, like that movie was perfect to me. Same thing. I had the same feeling when I left the theater after seeing Guardians of the Galaxy. I was like, this movie is just, it's just perfect. Mm-hmm. And the cool thing was, and another movie I'll bring up too, like that gave me the same feeling, was Terrifier 3. Terrifier 3 was, I know these 3 movies are completely different. You know, I mean, all 3 of them are different movies. You know what I mean? But they all gave me the exact same feeling when I left that theater. And that was, I want to see it again. Mm-hmm. I want to go. It's like getting off a really awesome ride and saying, let's go again. And that's what these movies did. And the cool thing is, like, you know me, I get very submersed into films and stuff like that. And well, I like it. I like doing that. And though all 3 of those movies, based off of the story that was being told and the characters and just the overall heart and vibe of the stories, like really had me wanting more. When the movie was over, it was over and I wanted more. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Like I wasn't sitting there looking at my watch and stuff like that. Like, you know, unfortunately, I mean, when it came to like Iron Man 2, you know, I'm like an hour in the movie, I'm like, is the movie over yet? And like, it just wasn't good, you know. Mm-hmm. And you know, like I said, I mean, I didn't like the Captain America, the first Avenger. I didn't like the movie. I wanted to like it. I love Captain America, but I didn't like it. Mm-hmm. Avengers, I didn't like it. Mm-hmm. I really don't like the first Avengers. It's just, to be honest, I mean, I know a lot of people disagree with me because it made a shitload of money, but I really didn't like it. I did like the first Thor, which I was very surprised. So like, you know, for these movies, that experience that they give you and that feeling they give you, it's almost like creates a core memory. And then when you I feel like a lot of things with nostalgia is you try to think of things to bring back those core memories so you can live in those moments. And with Guardians of the Galaxy, that's one of those, you know, time machines for me that can take me back to when I first saw it and when I rewatch it, because like you said, it's an incredible story. Yeah. You like it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. This movie, I mean, also like this movie, like it skyrocketed the careers of multiple people. I mean, this really, like, for Dave Bautista, you know, for being a wrestler turned actor, he was so ecstatic when he got this role. He said he broke down and cried when his agent told him that he got the role, because this was a big thing for him. Same thing goes for Chris Pratt. This is what made Chris Pratt. Yes, people liked him on Parks and Rec, but this is what made him the Chris Pratt we know now. Yeah. Really. I mean, he became, I was like, oh, this chubby guy, because we've known him as Andy, he can be also a kind of like a Han Solo, or he can be kind of like that, like, you know, like that, the hero, or the, like, you know what I mean? He's not just the fat, chubby, funny guy, you know what I mean? And, you know, that was really like hard for him because they weren't really eyeing him up for the role. But then after James Gunn actually got to meet with Chris Pratt, he loved his enthusiasm so much. He was like, I really, really, really want you as Star-Lord. And he's like, but the studio's not really happy with how, you know, about your weight. Because that, I mean, that's true. Like 9 times 10, if someone's gonna become a superhero, you got to get in shape. And he had just gained a bunch of weight from doing like a Vince Vaughn movie. I think it was called Delivery Man. Mm-hmm. And they were like, he had gained like, I think 40, 50 pounds for that movie or something like that. And he was already on the heavier side to play a funny, heavier character like Andy on Parks and Rec. And he basically was like, here, what's called, give me 6 months, and I'll lose the 50 pounds. And James Gunn said, he goes, I was even going to the point where like I might even just CGI abs onto him or stuff like that because he liked him so much and he wanted to put him in the movie. He wanted him to be his Star-Lord. And after that 6 months, he lost, instead of losing 50 pounds, lost 60 pounds, which he had also done before too for Zero Dark 30. So he had proven that he can get in shape.
Yeah.
But his role in that movie was very, very small. But it can't, when it comes down to it, like he knew he could prove himself. With also for James Gunn, like this really did. James Gunn was the Trauma guy, making these small little independent movies at Trauma. He had been writing a couple of scripts. He wrote the Scooby-Doo script and so forth like that. He had a couple of non-trauma films. He did Super, which was it was very funny, kind of a black comedy and like a tale of a superhero. With Rainn Wilson and Ellen Page, or it's Elliot Page, right?
Elliot Page.
Elliot Page. And he also had done Slither, which was also black comedy horror film, sci-fi horror film, which is a very good movie. Very, very, very good. I mean, kind of like not really a retelling of Night of the Creeps, but you can definitely see some inspiration there. But after this movie, he was the man, and now he's the head of the DC movie division, and he's sculpting the future for the new DC universe and so forth like that. Which, with everything going on right now, I am a big DC fan, and this is the new universe going forward for them, and he is at the helm of it. And so far some stuff has came out about his Superman movie that just, it doesn't really look like it's going to be that great. But the thing is we saw what he did with Guardians of the Galaxy. I mean, he took a franchise that really didn't have their own comic, and just they eventually had their own comic, but for a long time they were just independent people in other comics. He took this franchise and turned it into something really special. I do think that with getting a major IP like Superman and something like that, I really do think, once we actually see it, I don't expect him to do anything less than making something incredible. I think personally. But yeah, and then also the soundtrack. I mean, what about the soundtrack?
Yeah, the soundtrack's very good.
Very good. I mean, come on. I mean, you got,
it's very fun and upbeat.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I pulled it up over here. I mean, we've got, got the Jackson 5. You got Redbone with, Come and Get Your Love. I mean, amazing, Blue Swede, which is Hooked on a Feeling. It goes on and on and on. And then the second one had a great soundtrack. Yeah. And it was almost like it gave me that Quentin Tarantino vibe, where like Quentin Tarantino really knows how to pick the soundtrack for his movies. And this movie is exactly the same. That soundtrack really taps into the essence of the film, I think. And I really think, once again, even the soundtrack itself does create something special, because when you listen to the soundtrack, you can almost close your eyes and see the movie. Because those songs are so relevant throughout the whole entire movie. And okay, that's when this point that happens. That's when this happens. And, they really make it a part of the movie because it's on the mixtape that Quill has from his mom. And they tie it into the characteristic of Quill, which I just think is, I guess you consider I don't know if that's a meta thing or something like that, but it's very cool to have the music be playing throughout the movie, but it's also the same music that's playing on his Walkman throughout the movie. I don't know. I thought at that time, it was the most clever thing I'd seen. I thought it was amazing. But I mean, that's, like I said, I think this movie's fantastic. Is there anything that you want to share before we actually start to break it down?
No, I mean, it was good. It's something that we usually rewatch on the regular, so it's not like it's the first time I've watched it. So it's not I have a reaction to it that's come and gone.
But yeah, so okay. Well, I guess if you want, we're gonna do the part where Becca reads the back of the box.
Oh, these are so much. It's such smaller font on Blu-rays.
Yeah, those words are so tiny.
Yes, they are really tiny. Much tinier than the VHSs. Thumbs up for VHSs. And they're larger font. From Marvel, the studio that brought you Marvel's Iron Man, Marvel's Thor, Marvel's Captain America, and Marvel's The Avenger, comes an unlikely new team, the Guardians of the Galaxy. The Marvel Cinematic Universe expands into the cosmos when brash space adventurer Peter Quill steals a mysterious, all-powerful orb. Chased by relentless enemies, he forms an uneasy alliance with a ragtag band of misfits, leading to a desperate battle that will decide the fate of the galaxy. Featuring amazing new characters and exclusive bonus features, this must-own blockbuster is your ticket to a wild thrill ride.
All right, yeah. So let's go ahead and get started. So the movie opens up with Quill being a child, and he is at a hospital. Unfortunately, his mom looks like to have terminal cancer, and she's on her last limb. It looks like, on her way out, and we get introduced to Quill, and he's in the waiting room. We'll listen to his Walkman, and basically his grandfather calls him in, which is, cool thing about James Gunn. He loves bringing in people that he worked with in the past. And his grandfather was in Slither. So he brings his grandfather brings him in to talk to his mom to have the last talk. She's on her last leg. This scene, oh my God. Every time.
I know it gets
every time. This scene is it's so sad.
Mm-hmm.
It's so sad. There's so many sad scenes in movies history, and I don't think that this one gets talked about enough because it is just gut wrenching. You just started the movie.
Yeah.
You just started the movie. It's not like, you've been watching Bambi for the first 15 minutes and then you get hit with something, or, it's, hell, it beats Up. You know what I mean? Up had you crying after the first 5 minutes,
Yeah.
And stuff like that. Like this gets you like right in the gut. Like, I don't know, 2 some odd minutes into the movie and you're like, holy shit. But yes, he's, there with his mother, and she wants to have, a talk with him. He's got a black eye, and she's like, what's wrong? What you been fighting again? And
deep breath.
And she's like, you've been fighting again. And I can't do it. You talk about it. All right, I'll come back to
Just summarize it.
Well, she's just like,
So she gets on into him for fighting, and he kind of explains what had happened. And then she tries to give him a gift to open when she's gone, and that he's going to be staying with his grandfather until his mother comes back. And at that moment, she also asks Peter to please take her hand, and she's pleading with Peter to take her hand, and his grandfather's trying to force him to, but he won't even look at her. And then unfortunately, that's the moment where she passes on. You get a very, very intense scene where Peter's kind of rushed out of the room screaming, very, very upset. And his grandfather pleads with him to please stay there, please stay there. He has the Walkman in his backpack. Peter runs out of the hospital and ends up getting abducted out in the grassy area outside the hospital.
Yeah, and then basically some boys have been they killed a frog, and he didn't think it was right, so he was going to try to stand up for basically. It's like, no, that's not right. So he got in a fight with the boys and stuff like that. And then she says the line, she said, well, you're just like your daddy. So yes, for some reason, I'm good. For some reason, Peter gets abducted, and we have no idea why. It goes to 26 laters.
26 laters.
Sorry, 26 years later. We are at a planet called Morag, and we get introduced to the current time Peter.
Yeah.
And he has made his way to Morag, and he is a scavenger. Basically, he looks for items of worth to find, to resell, to scavenge some more, So
It reminds me of those metal detector people.
yeah,
I mean, that's what they are. Yeah.
Basically, yeah. He get like either like they get word of something and then they go find it and they bring it back to the buyer who actually has increased interest of wanting that item and selling it for funds, and that's how they kind of that's how they kind of live their life. Basically, a space pirate, in other words. And so finds this old ancient city in Morag, and he uses this cool little device, and we get to see what the city used to look like. And he goes inside, and he's looking for this orb. He's got this coordinates. He finds the orb. He uses his cool gadgets to pull it out of the force field. And right when he gets it, he turns around, and these Kree soldiers have apprehended him, and they want the orb, and he's like, "What's called?" He goes, "Oh, okay, you can have it. That's fine." They're like, "What's called?" And there's like, why do you want this orb? He's like, "Oh, I'm just a junker." He's like, "You got nice tools for a junker," and then that's when he's like, "Okay, my name is Peter." He's like. He goes, "But you might know me as another name," and then that's where he brings up, Star-Lord, and then he's like. Star-Lord. He's like, "Man, Star-Lord, the rebel outlaw, whatever." And we get this cool little scene where he's upset, whatever, but then he ends up basically fighting the Kree soldiers. Really well done. These action sequences throughout this entire film are top-notch action sequences. They're entertaining. They're fun. There's not a stale moment in this movie whatsoever. And it's nothing... the choreography and the scenes that we get and how everything laid out, nothing feels reproduced. It doesn't feel like you're copy and paste. It really is, I think, it's just fun and very well planned out. Each individual fight scene, explosion, the way Quill uses his weaponry to apprehend people without hurting them and stuff like that. The freaking spaceship fights and stuff like that. I mean, everything in this movie feels very fresh and almost like very just well done in a way of very intelligently done, I feel like.
Yeah.
Personally. But yeah, so Quill ends up getting away with his ship and he has the orb. He gets a call in, from Yondu, and he's got a lady on board, and basically he at one point he forgets that she's there, and it's funny. So if you watch this scene back, she's wearing a shirt.
Yeah.
You didn't notice this, so I told you about it, but but if you haven't noticed.
I noticed it the second time. Yeah. I was like, yeah.
But if you haven't noticed, when she comes out wearing the shirt, it's his shirt that he was abducted from. Yeah. So it's his old T-shirt when he was little. Yeah. Which I thought that was a pretty cool touch, where she's wearing his old clothes and stuff like that.
So as Logan mentioned, Yondu calls Quill and his lady visitor. What are they? The pink people?
Xandarians.
Okay. His lady Xandarian friend answers the phone, even though Quill attempted to stop her, and she just answers it anyway. And Yondu ends up putting a bounty on Quill's head for the orb, essentially. However, they're also trying to hunt him down themselves as well.
They were supposed to get the orb, and Quill went there before them. That was the whole thing. They were supposed to get the orb, and he was like, "Well, I was just in the area, so I just picked it up." He was like, "All right, you're going to bring it to me." And he's like, "It's not going to happen." He's like, "Boy, don't you receive that money?"
Essentially, Yondu kind of treats Quill like his son.
Yes.
And acts as if he's Quill's father. And he holds over Quill's head the fact that he didn't let the other whatever's population eat Quill.
Yeah.
Which comes up later in a disagreement between the two of them. So following the bounty on Quill's head, that means several different species are now after Quill. And we meet Ronan the Accuser.
Yeah. So basically, Ronan the Accuser is a Kree, a member of the Kree. He is basically a very powerful being, and at this point in time, the Kree and the Xandarians have been basically in this intergalactic battle for years and years, and the Kree apparently killed his family, and he is still holding resentment towards them. Regardless, a peace treaty had just been in place, but Ronan the Accuser is like, no peace treaty is enough to give me back my family. Mm-hmm. And he's like, I don't care what the government says, I will not stop till every Xandorian has been destroyed.
Mm-hmm.
And he is a bad motherfucker. I mean, we get this scene of him basically interrogating this Xandorian person that works at the Nova Corps, and he basically just says, "I'm going to eradicate the entire species," and grabs his sledgehammer and just crushes his head in.
Mm-hmm.
We don't see that, but that's exactly what happens. Yeah. And that's the cool thing is like James Gunn, this movie does get pretty violent. There's some scenes in this movie that's pretty yes, they cut it away and stuff like that, but the essence of the scene itself is pretty messed up. People die in this movie, like die in this movie. I'm sure. I mean, like, people died in Winter Soldier and stuff like that. But this movie, it really is like, there's, I guess, I don't know if it's levity or what I'm looking for, but like these scenes, even though they're toned down for children to watch, they hold weight. You know what I mean? Like, if you step back and think about it, like three-dimensional, it's like, okay, that's heavy. Mm-hmm. And you kind of, I get it. Like, you can kind of understand where he's coming from. He's like, my family died during this war. Yeah. And just now I'm supposed to forget all that just because a peace treaty has been signed. And I get that where he's like going against his government. It's like, no, I don't care. Yeah. I am going to bring a stop to this, regardless of what peace treaty. And we get a little bit of that later in the movie with the Glenn Close's character where basically she's like, hey, this Ronan's been going around killing Xandorians. Y'all gonna stop them? And they're like, well, that's not in my worry. That's your worry. Our people have already signed our treaty. We did what you wanted us to do. So that's your problem, not our problem, because he's not killing Krees. He's killing Xandorians. Yeah. You know what I mean?
So then Quill heads off to Xandar. He drops off his lady friend, and now he's going to go cash in the orb for payment, essentially. However, it's kind of like a jeweler. The jeweler he takes it to finds out what it actually is and who he is and what could be associated with the orb and no longer wants business with him. So Quill on his way out, essentially, or while trying to make this deal, ends up getting into a fight with Gamora.
Yeah, and now this thing, I'm not sure, and I know you're not going to know, but like, what's called... The guy's like, I can't tell you who my buyers are. I can't tell you who my buyers are. I can't give you that information. And I always wondered, like, now this could...
I think that's pretty normal for jewelers.
Yeah.
And diamond collectors.
And my head is like, was it Gamora? Is that why she's there? Because she was the one who was supposed to... She was the buyer to get the orb. And that's why she just showed up to be there when... No, well, I guess that doesn't make sense because she knows Ronan wants the orb. I always wonder who the buyer was, and maybe I could probably just Google it and it'll probably tell me, but
most likely.
I always wonder, like, just rewatching, like, well, who was the original buyer? But yeah, so, they get in a fight. Meanwhile, while Gamora tries to take the orb from Peter, and we got Groot and Rocket, and they are basically like bounty hunters, and they have basically got word that Quill has, I think it's 40,000, can't remember his credits or whatever, on his head. So they're going to try to take him in to receive that bounty. So now we got all four of them kind of fighting at the same time. You got basically Quill's trying to get away, Gamora's trying to get Quill, and then basically get the orb from him while, Rocket and Groot have no desire for the orb. They just want Quill. And while all this is going on, the Nova Corps is paying attention to it, and then they end up basically arresting them, apprehending them, and for their disruptions throughout the Xandar, whatever you want to call it, and basically they're gonna everyone has a record that they find out, so they're gonna send them all to the kiln, which is like a intergalactic space prison floating around in space.
So after they get to the kiln, I think that's how you pronounce it. You get a little backstory on everybody. So, the other characters get their first exposure to, Quill and his connection to the tape recorder, or like I can't think of the word for it. Walkman, thank you. Tape recorder. Not necessarily why he's so connected to it, but he gets very bothered that it's going to be taken from him and the security guards are messing with it. You get background on Rocket and the fact that he is essentially an escape artist. He's escaped like 22 prisons, so he's not going to be in here long.
And he's genetically modified. So we learn more about throughout the franchise what Rocket is.
Yeah.
He's not a raccoon, but he's basically a raccoon outer body, but he actually is just a technological exoskeleton underneath the raccoon body. That's why he's always talking about like, I'm not a raccoon. What are you talking about? What's this raccoon? What's vermin? I'm not that.
Yeah. And then there's not really much background about Groot.
Yeah, he's just he's basically Rocket's muscle, his bodyguard.
Yeah. And then you get Gamora's background when, what's his name, tries pretty much fixates on her because he wants to attack her.
Yeah, it's basically,
what's his name?
Who are you talking about?
The prisoner, the guy that's already in the prison.
Drax.
Yeah.
Yeah, we find a little bit later. The Drax comes in a little bit later. But yeah, basically Gamora is the daughter of Thanos. And she's been, basically an orphan child from a non-existent species anymore because basically Thanos killed her entire planet and he takes her in and has trained her ever since a child to be just this like incredible warrior.
Mm-hmm.
But little did we know, like, she doesn't like Thanos. And this whole entire time, she's been working on a way to get rid of Thanos.
Mm-hmm.
And we get a little backstory about Quill, where how he's, basically been, going from galaxy to galaxy, stealing things and stuff like that and selling them.
He's essentially a gypsy.
I guess so. I don't really know a lot about gypsies. But.
I think so. I think it aligns from my understanding.
Yeah, but so and it is really cool because there's some really nice scenes. Like you brought up the Walkman scene, and that scene is one of the heaviest scenes where you could just tell like Chris Pratt really does sell it. Chris Pratt. I know a lot of people shit on him these years because he keeps up showing a lot of things and people are just getting tired of him. I understand when people want to get tired of somebody. I completely get that. Like sometimes I can get tired of Jim Carrey and stuff like that. When I go back and like watch movies I used to like with him in it, it's just kind of like, it feel like it's the same character over and over again. And sometimes I understand where people can feel that with Chris Pratt, but like, in the end of the day, man, the guy is a phenomenal actor.
Mm-hmm.
He is incredible, and and these three movies show that.
Mm-hmm.
Infinity Wars.
You got cable.
Infinity Wars was that Xfinity versus Comcast or whatever. Yeah,
Capcom.
Capcom. But throughout this entire cinematic universe, even into Guardians 3, which is phenomenal, it really does. It really does let him show you that he can act, because these scenes, like him being upset about that and like, no, that is mine. That song belongs to me. You're not messing this up. Like, I don't know. I really like that scene. So basically, after everybody gets booked, they're walking their way to the inside of the prison, and Rocket basically makes a statement saying, I've escaped 22 prisons in my life. We ain't going to be here long, okay? Don't get your bed warm, okay? Because you want to be sleeping in it. And so as they start to get accustomed and stuff, like they put in all their, their uniforms and stuff like that, that night we end up seeing that some individuals that, what's called that hate Gamora due to her father being Thanos, because he is such an awful person. I mean, he's this intergalactic dictator that's going throughout the universe, just destroying civilizations that is, if he deems that don't need to exist anymore, due to like some godly power belief that he know what's right for the universe while others don't, and they want to kill Gamora for all the harm that her father has caused. And this is when we see Drax. He comes in, he's like, no, anyone who's killing Thanos' blood is going to come from me. Drax has a big backstory. He's basically, his family was murdered by murdered by Ronan and so forth. And, but that was the orders was given by Thanos. So like in the day, it's like he wants to go down the line, knocking these people off one by one. And it's kind of cool because like his character itself is pretty intense because, the original story of the character was he was an original person whose soul basically was put into Drax, the destroyer that was created to fight Thanos. So, this movie does play a lot with some of the newer storylines that revolve around the Guardians, based off a comic that came out around 2008. So like this is a more fresh, modern telling of those characters because the original Star Wars was like, he was kind of like Green Lantern. He was a space cop, basically, because that's what Green Lanterns are. They're basically space cops. That's what he was. He was an intergalactic cop. But, him being a scavenger is much different story, much different characteristics. You know what I mean? That's more of like a Han Solo character versus, like a baby face, or what do they call it? Like, baby face, kind of like in wrestling where the baby face is the, he's the one that you want to protect. And then the meat, whatever. But anyway, but yeah, so, basically she explains to Drax, like, listen here, I want to kill my father. You want to kill him? I want to kill him. Okay. Let me live and I'll make sure that you can basically,
you get that opportunity.
You get that opportunity. So he agrees. And Quills also comes in and explains, like, listen here, like, you don't want to kill her, let's call it, because, we can work together and stuff like that. And that's where we get the kind of funny is like, and you
he's
can
a very literal thing.
Yeah. And you get the funny moment where he's like, pulls his finger to his neck. He's like, why would I put my finger over my throat? He's like, no, this expression that you will slice his throat. He's like, I will not slice his throat. Yeah. I'll cut his head clean off. He's like, what? You get the chance. You get what I mean, man.
Yeah. So they do end up escaping the prison, all 5 of them, by essentially Rocket turns the gravity off in the chambers, but not in the security tower, which they are at. So they end up being able to disconnect from the tower and float off to nowhere. And literally.
And the cool thing is all that scene, that big epic scene that takes place, everything that they do is very well written and it's very logical. Like, oh, okay, well, we'll use these devices to, yes, this doesn't, we can't fly this machine, but we'll reprogram the gunners that have jetpacks on them, and we'll use them as our thrusters to fly down the corridor to get to the spaceship. Yeah, very well thought out. I mean, it's very, what's the word I'm looking for? Like, I keep on saying intelligent, but like it's very smart, very, I don't know what I'm looking for.
And Quill cannot get on the spaceship until one last mission, which is to go get his Walkman back from the security guard. And so everyone's waiting for him, and Gamora thinks that she has the orb in the duffel bag. However, she does not. It is Twizzler's. And Quill then flies out in outer space into the spaceship, and he has the orb and his Walkman. So they were forced to wait for him because they didn't actually have what they wanted to, or what they needed to have before they could leave.
Yeah, so they're all leaving, and they're going to a planet called Nowhere, which is a celestial being, a dying celestial being's head that is being mined for the minerals of whatever's found in the bone matter, the skin matter, and all that kind of stuff.
When you were younger and you asked your dad like where he was going, did he ever say crazy?
Yeah. Oh, every time. Still to this day.
Yeah.
Crazy. You want to come with me?
Yeah.
Yes, Daddy. No, I'm going to Uncle Wendell's. But yeah, so they end up making it to the planet Nowhere, and what they're going to do is they're going to meet up with Gamora's buyer, who wants the orb. And once they give it to that individual, they know that it's going to keep it safe because they know Ronan wants it, which means Thanos wants it. And they know Thanos cannot get it. It's very important that does not get in the hands of Thanos. So we end up meeting our buyer, which is the collector, which is Benicio del Toro. And, it's so weird that they brought him in for this very little small role. There's so many people in this movie with really small roles, like John C. Reilly. I brought up Glenn Close earlier. And it's just so funny to see them just these big actors just sprinkled out throughout the movie. And we find out that as he opens the orb, because they don't know what's inside it. They all know is it's something that's no good in the hands of Ronan and Thanos. So we find out it is an Infinity Stone. And it is known as the Power Stone. And then we get a little backstory about the Infinity Stones that were created at the beginning of the galaxy and so forth like that. All these anti-celestial beings and stuff like that, which is very, very cool and which is very old school Marvel, very Jim Starlin and very old Jack Kirby Marvel. Really cool with these gods and intercelestial beings and so forth. It's really nice to see that on screen. And that's another thing that I didn't bring up earlier. This movie is very colorful. It is definitely something that we have not seen before. As far as in the Marvel galaxy. Some movies have color in it, but everything wants to be like a cinematics universe, and they want to use dark tones on this. But this is playing with those popular colors that would pop on a comic book, like they scream at you, like a Jack Kirby old Fantastic Four, or some old Jack Kirby be like New Gods at DC. Just that bright color scheme that's just screaming at you as soon as you turn each page. We get a lot of that in this movie, and it really does, I think, make it visually beautiful. I mean, this film is gorgeous. It is just the color palettes and how they light up the scenes. And, yes, there are some dark scenes, but then you get certain different tones of the cosmic galaxy and purples and greens and stuff like that. It's so, so nice. And that's something that we hadn't really gotten yet in the MCU. And I definitely think it's definitely something very special, and I didn't want it to go untalked about, basically.
Yeah. So after they get to nowhere and they find out what is inside the orb, they also, while they are there, they're essentially in a space casino, I guess.
Yeah.
Making bets, and Drax and Rocket are getting drunk, and then they start to fight each other, and then Quill has to break them up because they're about to just shoot each other. And essentially, he has to bring everyone back together, him and Gamora, bring them back down to level to just continue on with the mission.
Yeah, and then at this time, that's a little bit before they meet the Collector. And, Drax is beside himself. He's very upset. And he's like I said, he's drunk. And he ends up taking upon himself to put matters in his own hands, and he's going to send out a call to Ronan to get him to show up to nowhere so he can finally fight him one-on-one. And it sucks because Drax is a character where yes, he's cool and stuff like that, and Jay Bautista does a great job at playing the character, but Drax reminds me and the people who watch the show, they'll know what I'm talking about. But to those later Dragon Ball Z episodes, where Drax is almost like the Vegeta. As the show progressed, it's always seemed like Vegeta was 2 steps behind the most powerful person, and it's no matter what he could do, he could not be better than Goku. And so it always seemed like his battles, it's always just sucked because he would give it all, but he would always still get his ass whooped. Not really die as much like Krillin would die and stuff like that, but he would always get his ass whooped, but he always had the passion. He always really, really fought really, really hard. It just made me think of Dragon Ball Z. Every single time Drax shows up to fight, Ronan, he always gets his ass whooped. And it sucks because he's supposed to be this really strong being that was built to kill Thanos, but clearly that would never happen.
Yeah. Also, now Nebula has returned, and a ship, which is Gamora's sister, and a ship fight breaks out, and unfortunately Gamora's ship is destroyed. That leaves her floating in space, which means she's not going to last long out there. However, Quill abandons his ship to try and save her by giving her his Star-Lord mask.
Yeah, so basically Quill throughout this movie has been having interest with Gamora. We see some little things with him playing his little headset and getting a little closer, trying to kiss her, and like, because she doesn't know what it is. He's a human. He brought something from Earth, or a Terran, as they call him in the universe and stuff like that. But he's for some reason starting to.
He's very drawn to her.
Yeah, he's actually for the first time in his life starting to care about someone else that's not himself.
Yeah.
And he doesn't really, he's kind of like, he's just smitten with her. He's like, he doesn't know why he's doing it. And that's kind of what he says when he saves her. He's like, I don't know, something just drew me to you. And he's like, and it was just so heroic. And then he kind of ruins it. I'm like, come on, for me flying out there saving you and sacrificing myself, that's pretty heroic. And he kind of ruins the moment. But yeah, he ends up basically, before he does it, he calls into Yondu. He's like, if you want me, come get me. I'm X, Y, and Z. And that's kind of like how they end up getting saved. And Yondu's not happy.
No.
Yondu's like, where's my fucking orb, dude? And he's, and he's trying to explain to him everything. Like, hey, you don't understand. And he's like, what's called Thanos wants this orb. It's an infinity. So he goes, I know what it is. I don't give a shit. I need my money.
Yeah.
And so he's like, listen here, we've got a plan. If you do this, you'll make more money than you'll ever need in your entire life if you do this one thing. But before he can give them the plan, they get interrupted. And basically, Rocket and Drax and Groot have flown up on Quill's spaceship, and they're going to blow the scavenger spaceship to Kingdom Come if they don't give back Peter and Gamora.
Yeah, so Peter ends up taking over the speaker and letting Rocket know that everything's okay. And they pull Rocket and Drax and Groot into the spaceship that they're in, and kind of give them a breakdown of, their game plan.
Yeah, they come together and they start saying this is what we need to do. And then before they tell the full plan to Yondu, they have this little personal meeting where they're, Quill's like, listen here, I got a plan, but it's not like 100% plan, but we need to flesh this out. And basically he comes up, he's like, well, we got to stop Ronan. And he's like, well, Ronan, and then Rocket brings up a really, really good, at that point, he's like, Ronan has the Infinity Stone now. He has it. So, and he can't be stopped, Quill. So what you're asking us to die. You're literally sending us into a battle. This is a suicide mission. You know what I mean? Where do you know what you're asking from us? And that's when Drax brings up, I can't remember if he's the first one, I think, or I don't know if he's the first one or if it's Gamora, or basically explains, what's called, I would love to go on this mission with you, and in the end, see my wife and kids again. Once again, I mean, you bring that in. I know that's something small, but man, like I said, this movie has heart all throughout. I mean, it's to sit back and think about, I'll do whatever I need to do. And in the worst case scenario, I die. But if I die, I get to see my wife. Yeah,
personally, it's not my worst case scenario kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly. You know what I mean? I will lay my life down for you, Quill. You know what I mean? Which is really, it's really cool for, and then Gamora's like, I second that motion. And then you got Groot, which is, I'm Groot, and then so the Rocket's like, all right, I guess I'll join this, which is funny. Apparently, Vin Diesel recorded I am Groot over 1,000 times for this movie. And I guess they would give him context of what this scene would mean. And he goes, all right, say I am Groot, but in this context.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I thought that was kind of funny. It is kind of like it's like the Iron Giant again. He was the voice of the Iron Giant.
So now that they've all agreed, they suit up and they head to Xandar, and their goal is to not let Ronan land in Xandar where they are, because once he lands, then it's going to be a much more challenging mission. So their idea is to not let him land.
Yeah, that Infinity Stone can destroy anything it comes in contact with. To yield an Infinity Stone, you have to have something that uses it as a beacon, something that can harness the energy of the stone itself, and then you, through harnessing that device, like an Infinity Gauntlet, like Ronan's hammer, and you can use the power from that device to will the stone to do your bidding, basically. And if that stone contacts the ground, the entire planet will just destroy itself.
Yeah.
But yeah.
So they end up, you get a huge montage of them making their way to Ronan's ship. However, they are unsuccessful, and in the course of that, they end up destroying Ronan's ship.
Yeah. So basically, throughout the process, they are trying to destroy Ronan because this new weapon that Rocket has created, they believe that it's going to be powerful enough to kill Ronan. So their goal is to break down his force field, get inside, and once they get inside of Ronan, they're going to blow him up with the rocket launcher. Unfortunately, all goes to plan. They get what they want, but yet they are unable to actually kill Ronan. The rocket does nothing to Ronan. And, we got basically, once again, unfortunately, Drax goes to try to kill Ronan, and it just gets thrown away like a rag doll. We get this really cool scene with Rocket flying in with the spaceship. He's about to kill Drax, and he crashes into Ronan, which also destroys the engines of the spaceship, which causes the spaceship to crash into Xandar. The Nova Corps has also, in this main process, they have also joined forces with the Scavengers to help Quill with his mission. We get this nice scene with like John C. Reilly where he's trying to explain to them, I am an asshole, but I'm not 100% the dick. Okay.
Yeah.
We really are trying to save the galaxy right now, even though my track record doesn't look good.
Yeah.
So they agreed to help out and everything like that. So unfortunately, a lot of Nova Corps die, and Ronan's ships crash landed into Xandar. Somehow, everyone is able to survive because Groot ends up sacrificing himself and creating a pod around them as like a cushiony device to shield them from the impact of the crash, which is another heartfelt scene.
Yeah.
It's so sad. Like, I wasn't expecting a major character of the movie to die in the movie. You know what I mean?
I'm laughing because the major character only says, 4 words, 3 words.
I know, but
it still sucks. I know. Yeah.
And he's such a great character.
Yeah.
It's like every scene that Groot's in, like, he's just so funny. Like, the banter between Rocket and Groot, it's like, it is unmatchable throughout this entire movie. Even though, like you said, it's just a character that just says, I am Groot. But I don't know, they're so witty and so smart.
Yeah, like there's the one point where he's just like, I'm Groot. And he's like, I know, they are so ungrateful or something like that. It's like, that's a good friend to have. And you can just force them to agree with you because they only say 3 words.
But yeah, so he sacrificed himself and he saves them. They start to wake up out of the rubble, and unfortunately, here it comes big bad Rodan about to destroy the entire planet. And it's funny, as the crash land happened, the tape player is still playing one of Quill's songs, and he's about to the Ronin's about to put his hammer down to destroy the entire planet, and he interrupts him with like a dance off, and we get this scene like. It's so clever. It's so funny, and I didn't see it coming and stuff like that. It's just like James Gunn's writing is so witty at times where like you said, it's like he zigs when he's supposed to zag and stuff like that, and it's not what you're anticipating. It's not what you're expecting, and I think that's one of the strong suits of this movie, because it takes you in a way. It takes you different scenes that you just weren't expecting.
Yeah. So while Quill is distracting Ronan, Rocket ends up destroying his hammer and grabbing onto the stone.
Quill grabs onto the stone.
Quill grabs onto the stone, and then they all in unison grab onto Quill as he's holding onto the stone.
Yeah, and we get this epic scene. Once again, I talk about the color palette. This scene is so freaking beautiful where we see Quill in this like he's in a trance of holding the stone and you hear take my hand. It's Gamora, but what Quill sees,
Is his mom.
I'm telling you that scene, take my hand, Quill. Take my hand, Peter. Take my hand.
Yeah.
Such like, like that's one of those scenes that's just like it's so I understand like when people say, you'll see these actors and actresses and someone will ask them like, what's your favorite movie? What's your favorite? And they'll say this movie that you've never fucking heard of. That's some French film that just like it's just this, like, it's nothing that anyone can fucking relate to. And like, or like, what's your favorite scene in a movie? Like, it's so funny because when I think about movies, this is the shit that I think. And I've seen a lot of freaking movies.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen artsy fartsy films. I've seen all the classics and stuff like that. AFI's top 100 movies you need to see. Well, I've seen all that shit. You know what I mean? And don't get me wrong, like I like some of that stuff, but when I think of scenes and movies that are like very, like just something that can't be reproduced, that is its own shell of a moment at that one time. These are the scenes that I think of. Stuff like this, like this scene right here, like that. Take my hand, Peter. That's the shit that I think is like some like incredible cinema. I know it's it's not Citizen Kane or Streetcar Desire or some French film or I don't know. Like it's just it's. I know like that doesn't sound like. I don't know his word for like, but like it doesn't sound like highbrow or anything. I don't know what I'm looking for. Words, words are not my strong suit. So it doesn't sound super intellectual or whatever, but like shit that I fucking care about. Mm-hmm. This is the shit I care about. Yeah. Like, and I think it sucks because when people talk about superhero movies, they, they ruin cinema and stuff like that. And I love Martin Scorsese, but they talk shit about movies all the fucking time about how superhero movies are awful and shit like that. But like, I'm sorry, but like this scene right here hits heavier than, Taxi Driver for me. Mm-hmm. Like this scene is for me is more important than watching Deer Hunter. You know what I mean? Like, I think this scene is much more, for me, something that is like, I think is really real, true cinema. And I know a lot of people are going to disagree with me, but as far as the things I like and what I think is cinema, and I don't think a lot of people actually refer to it as cinema, I think that shit's cinema. Personally, I don't feel like every single important scene in a movie needs to be like some drawn out, boring ass movie. Don't get me wrong. I like those movies I brought up. I like those movies. I love Taxi Driver. I love Deer Hunter. I like those movies too as well. But when I think something for me that's important to me that I think people need to see before they die and stuff like that, like, well, yeah. I mean, some people would say like those are kind of movies like, what's going on? Oh, you got to see this movie. You got to see that movie or whatever. I do think like Guardians of the Galaxy, I think that's a movie. Like some people say Back to the Future. Yeah. Guardians of the Galaxy is just like Back to the Future. It's just like, oh no, you got to see Guardians of the Galaxy. Like you have to see Back to the Future. It truly is something special. Mm-hmm. I'm sorry. I don't know where I went with that, but anyways, I'm done with my soapbox.
So, Nova Corps, then the Guardians of the Galaxy, the Guardians, they end up going to Nova Corps, and Nova Corps ends up granting them expungement of all the crimes that they've committed in this brigade event. So Quill also gets a new ship, and he finally opens the present that his mother had gifted him.
Yeah, and it has a little note in there, which is another great scene. And it basically the note ends on my little Star-Lord. And it's just the most clever thing to put in there, just to put the little icing on the cake of like just something so sweet and kind to kind of like just, put that period at the end of that story. It's like, to tie everything to the entire movie on how Quill is as a person, like, and why he chose to use Star-Lord to be his renegade name and stuff like that. I thought that was just chef's kiss.
Yeah.
Chef's kiss.
And now the gang to end the movie is off on a new adventure.
Yep.
The end.
Yeah, it's really funny where he's just like, all right, y'all, what do we want to do? Want to do something good? Want to do something bad?
Yeah.
Or a bit of both? They're like, and then that's when Gamor's like, we follow your lead, Star-Lord. And he's like, a bit of both.
Yeah. But yeah, I think it's a good movie. I like it every time we rewatch it. The characters are really enjoyable. The soundtrack, like you mentioned, is great. Yeah. And there is an aspect of it that isn't enjoyable. I will say it is a little long. But it's
only 2 hours though. That's like far as like some of the
I know. Movies over the last like decade have gotten insanely long for no rhyme or reason.
Terrifier 2 is 2.5 hours long.
I don't have that kind of time. No offense. I've heard it's phenomenal. I just don't have that time.
Yeah. I mean, this movie is
maybe at my house I have that amount of time, but like I don't want to sit in a movie theater seat for that long.
See, that's where, to be honest, I do better in those scenarios because when I go to the movie theater and it's something new and fresh, I don't want to touch anything. I don't want to be on my phone.
Well, I don't want to be at home so I can be on my phone. I just am more comfortable at home.
Well, my thing is, though, my thing is when I'm watching movies I have not seen before, typically when these movies I have not seen before are older movies that are like on my back catalog of movies I need to watch or whatever, or a horror movie I haven't seen yet that I've been on my watch list forever. So
I've seen hundreds of movies.
I know. Yeah, there's so many movies out there. I'm just saying, like, my thing I fall accustomed to is I'll watch something and I'll see something and then I want to Google something while I'm watching the movie. And like, I want to find out, like, oh, what happened? Oh, that so-and-so's in it. What movie are they in? Oh, like, I end up doing that a lot when I'm not, when I'm at the house. That's why I really like, when I go to the movie theater, I immerse myself in it. Yeah,
it's a whole thing for you.
Oh yeah,
which is fine.
Yeah, no, I think that it makes watching movies easier, and I would like to I would like to see movies in theaters more, but I mean, not a lot of movies have been actually coming out that I want to see.
Yeah.
But that's I feel like I can sit down for 2.5 hours or 3 hours in a movie theater because it's an event. At the house, I understand that you got so much distraction things. Yeah, because you can get up and do stuff at the house. Let me fix something. Let me pause it. You don't run to the bathroom real quick to try not to miss anything.
But then when you're at home, you get to pause it and you can run to the bathroom.
I get that, but yeah,
different aspects.
No, what I'm saying is I see your argument. I get it.
No, I get what you're saying as well. But yeah, so Guardians of the Galaxy for episode 49. I can't say whether it's the best Marvel film because I have very limited comparisons. Like I have watched Marvel films, but I don't know. I can't. I don't feel like I have the proper background to say whether it was the best Marvel film.
So I personally,
I know you do.
Yeah, I really. Here's the thing: is now this is what I think about. Okay, so like when I say the best Marvel film, I want to say let's put it like the MCU film, okay? Because if we're going to talk about Marvel films, we really need to talk about the universe that was built that this movie actually takes place in. So that would be the MCU. So set aside, the X-Men movies and Spider-Man and all that kind of stuff. Just thinking about just the MCU movies. Now, I will say, I do think it is the best Marvel movie when we're talking about MCU because this movie, you don't need anything else but this movie. There's no movies to tie in to this film for you to understand it. Everything sets on its own level playing field, and you don't need anything else. A lot of people would say, well, Infinity War was amazing. I understand that, but you can't really enjoy Infinity War without X, Y, and Z. This movie itself, I think, is the best because it is just you put it in, you play it, it is its own film. It doesn't lean on the shoulders of other movies so you can actually enjoy this movie. That is why I think this is the best Marvel film. I really do. Now, for you guys, your viewers, and listeners, let me know. Put in the comments, what's your favorite? What do you disagree? Do you agree? Let us know because, I understand like a lot of people like Infinity War, It is an incredible movie. Black Panther is an incredible film. It really
Well, yeah,
is.
you're not saying the other films are incredible. You're just saying, in your opinion, this
Yeah,
one's the
in my
best.
opinion, I really think like the storyline and the humor, and like I said, it really did change the projection of all the other films after this movie was made for them to get their what they call the Marvel storyboard or whatever there's a special word for it. I can't remember what they call it. Basically, the way they used to make a Marvel film was basically adapted after the success from this one. But yeah, let us know what your thoughts are.
Leave a comment, share your feedback, and
yeah. I don't really like I say I'm not going to talk on and like all the great stuff because I kind of said a lot of that throughout the film. So I mean, then it's just me restating everything I've already said.
Yeah, but thank you guys for joining us for episode 49. Like always, don't forget to like, subscribe, and follow if you haven't already. Leave us a comment with your favorite Marvel film if this one is not your favorite, or which one you think is the best Marvel film of the MCU. And we will see you guys again on episode 50. I'm Becca Hedrick.
I'm Logan Edgar.
And we're Video Vila Podcast.